Well, thanks for joining us one more time on the Pastor's Porch. Last week you had the opportunity to hear Coach Devane, and both these guys that are sitting with me tonight, they're products of Coach Devane. He coached both you guys.
That's right.
Yes, sir. You played for him?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
And I know you played for him. Then you coached with him. Both of them got to coach with him and for him. So they could tell you a lot more stories about it. We only had a 30-minute show. Tonight, Brooks Mewborn and Steve Burton, both these guys, I've had the opportunity to be with them since I've been at Hart County. And I'll be honest with you, I consider them great friends. They're coaches, and we've done a lot of things together. In fact, when they weren't coaching, whether they were in school or doing some other things, when they weren't coaching, they helped me on the sidelines doing 12th man. It was funny how, though, they always found themselves going to the box. Didn't really do much on the sideline. The coaches said, I got a free coach here that knows what he's doing. And I'll look around, they'll be gone. But I appreciate you guys. Steve is a lot younger than me. Brooks is still, everybody's younger than me now, it seems like. But Steve, he was one of those guys when he played football. He was the student leader. And then Brooks, one of the things I've told him this privately, and I've told a lot of people this, the only regret I have about you is that Russ never got a chance to play for you. He got a chance to play for you, but he never got a chance to play for you. And in my opinion, these are two of the greatest coaches ever come out of Hart County. And so it's my privilege to have them tonight. And so I want you to just kind of introduce yourself, kind of just as quickly about your family, where you're at, where you're teaching, what you're doing, and then we'll just kind of go on from there. So, Brooks, why don't you start?
I will. My name is Brooks Mewborn, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to come back home and give back to field of education. And I've served as a teacher, a coach, a graduation coach. Again, I got into administration, been an assistant principal, and now I'm the CEO of the College and Career Academy there at Hart County High School. So I've just been fortunate to be able to, God called me into the field of education to try to make a difference in kids' lives, and I got a chance to come back home and do that, and I'm very thankful for that.
I'll say more about this in a minute, but you made the statement just then that God called you back to your hometown in the field of education. Kelly Gaines, one of the filmers that's filming this show right now, she used to work on our staff.
Right.
And then she came one day and she said, I know God wants me back in the public school system.
Absolutely.
But to make a difference in those kids' lives who may not have she has that inside scoop, I guess you would say. But I think that's a calling. I think you guys remember a lot of the coaches' devotions we had talked about, that as much as pastoring is a calling, I believe coaching is a calling too.
Absolutely.
And that's how I met both these guys as coaches. And we'll come back to this. So go ahead, Steve, and share just a brief of who you are. We'll come back to some things I want to talk about that you're doing.
Steve Burton. Like Brooks, I was fortunate enough to come back to the town that raised me and to taught. I've been at every elementary school in Hart County.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I started off at South Hart. I transferred to Hartwell to be the STEM facilitator. And from Hartwell, I went to North Hart to be the assistant principal. Married with 2 kids. My wife's a teacher as well.
What's her name?
Samantha. Okay. Samantha Burton. Sister's a teacher. Brother's going to school to be a teacher.
Wow.
So education is in our blood. But coached for years. I've been out the last 2 years, going on 3. And that's definitely helped me to become a leader in the school, is being around coaches, and sports must play a tremendous role in it. But very fortunate to be the assistant principal now at North Hart. Yeah,
these guys right here, I really wanted to kind of focus on a lot of the education tonight. Here's why. There may be a parent or a group of parents that are listening to these guys right here, and we could sit here and talk football stories and coaching stuff, because Steve and I coached together, and we've got a bunch of stories there. And Mewborn and I have had the opportunity to be on the same sideline. But one of the things I know about them is that the coaching's in their blood, and they are great coaches. I'm not just saying that because they're sitting here. I'm talking about great coaches. But they're making a difference through kids' lives through education. And so if you're sitting there and you're thinking, man, I want to send my kids to a school or a school system to where they're going to be given quality, and it's going to be a thing to where excellence is the key. And I'm going to ask you just a little bit about, kind of share a little about what's going on at the College and Career Academy. And then Steve is at North Hart Elementary right now as assistant principal. And if you haven't taken some time to just kind of walk the halls at that school, it's special. There's a great unity and a great bond to those teachers and staff there. So, and I know the quality of what you guys are. And I know, let's get past the things that, you don't have to say that. I'm telling you, you guys, to me, are at the top of your game. And I believe that Hart County is being successful because of your success. I want to ask this, Steve. Let's start with you. I know when you came out, you graduated 2004. Seven. Okay, you started in 2003. We're talking about football a while ago, and you went. You had an opportunity to go play football at Mars Hill, and but you began to pray about it, and God said, "Didn't want you to go play football. He wanted you to go to Emmanuel," and then God called him into ministry. And if you haven't heard Steve speak or sing or play or lead his choir, you have missed the greatest blessing in the Northeast Georgia area. I mean, they've come to our church before, and we have a blast together. But just tell us a little bit about why you chose getting into education, how that worked, how that happened for you.
How that happens is sitting around this table right now.
Okay.
The question was asked, I think, my 10th grade year in high school, what is it you want to be when you grow up? Sounds like a very vanilla question, sounds like a normal question, but in 10th grade I had no idea. Maybe the medical field for physical therapists, but then I start thinking about the people that made the biggest impact on my life. William Devane, Coach Scroggs, Mike Carey, Brooks Mewborn. Those men began to ring a bell in my head, and I thought, what about teaching? So I sat down with Coach and got the outline of what it looked like. He was then teaching 4th grade at North Hart. So from there, I decided in the education field. Then I had opportunity to go to Mars Hill in Eastern Kentucky to play football. God had different plans. So my goal was to go to Emmanuel for a year and then to leave Hartwell and Royston and go as far away as I could. And I fell in love with Emmanuel College. Married my wife because of Emmanuel College. And we both were in education, and we've been together since. But so I started teaching. I was supposed to have done an intern, if you remember this or not. My intern was supposed to be with a 4th grade teacher at North Hart named Brooks Mewborn. But that got axed because he became the graduation coach
from the middle school.
At the middle school. So I ended up at South Hart, and I was very fortunate to be with Cassie Ayers at the time. She's now Cassie Nash in 4th grade. But I did my long-term or my intern there, and then I was hired 50%. There was no hiring much then because we were in that economic crisis, I guess you could say. And so I was hired as a response to Interventionist, working half-time. I then became full-time at South Hart, coaching football. I coached baseball. I helped with track a couple times. So that's just kind of how that all played out.
What is an interventionist? I think I know, but...
So my job was to really go in and co-teach. There are certain kids that you look for if we want to intervene. So there's deficits, and we want to attack those deficits with different strategies to hopefully, catch up the gaps or close those gaps. Sometimes our interventions work, and sometimes they don't. So when they don't, we move on what we call the tiers, and we get more in depth with how we could close those gaps of learning. So I did that for half a year, and then there was a death in our school, and I ended up being full-time in 2nd grade. I never wanted to be lower than 4th grade, but my first full-time job was 2nd. And stayed there 3 years teaching 2nd grade.
Yeah, you don't always get to plan your plans.
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
Brooks, tell them kind of where you're at, how you got there, because you've moved up. Not that your goal was to move up the ladder, but I'm going to go somewhere with this, but just kind of tell what the College Career Academy does.
Right.
I'd like for you to tell them what they offer, because there is an incredible amount of stuff that's going on through the College and Career Academy.
Absolutely.
When a student graduates and that they're ready for the job force, and you're a big part of that, or you are the driving force of that. So share what's going on.
Well, the College and Career Academy is so unique, and I'd be honest with you, I'm an early childhood guy, and I spent most of my career at the elementary level. But God did call me to the College and Career Academy, and serve as a CTA director and the CEO of the College and Career Academy. And it's just, it's been a learning curve for me, but at the same time, Chris, there's so much about education, as Steve has already documented, that education is 90% about building a relationship with people.
Exactly.
And that's what we try to do there at the Career Academy, is just build relationships with these kids and then provide them opportunities for the future.
Yeah.
And, we talk about, when I was growing up, it was, people were kind of punching me and nudging me in the arm and saying, you got to go to college. Because without that, there's no opportunities out there. Well, to be honest with you, today's time, you don't have to go to college and spend 4 years of your parents' hard-earned money to get a degree. Now, I'm saying that, and I got a kid that's going to the University of Georgia, and I have not discouraged him from that. I have tried to educate my own kids as well as all the kids and our teachers and parents at the College and Career Academy about options that lay ahead of your kid. Whether it be going to the University of Georgia and majoring in audio video technology, or whether it's going straight to the workforce, or whether it's going to Athens Tech to be a dental hygienist. There's so many opportunities. Our job there is not to talk the kids out of going to college, but to, more than anything, just educate them and their parents. That's the biggest piece to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Educating their parents about the opportunities that are out there. We've got kids that are leaving, they're graduating in July, that'll be going to Germany September the 1st with Harry and Precision. And they'll have a 4.5 year paid education. They'll get paid to go to school, actually. So it's just opportunity. We have a pipeline of students that are in audio video technology at the University of Georgia, Valdosta State, Georgia Southern. We've got students that are all over in that pathway. We have our healthcare science pathway is probably one of our most popular with our students, because there's so many different, the healthcare science umbrella is huge. Right. But then you talk about STEM, you talk about engineering, you talk about HVAC. I could go on and list the 14 different pathways that we have to offer. But at the end of the day, when we graduate 223 seniors on July the 18th, I might miss that number up a little bit, but I'm close. They'll wake up on July the 19th and they'll think, where am I going now?
Yep.
So we want to have a plan for all of them. Yeah. And our job is not to miss any of them. We don't want anybody to graduate and not have a plan for their future, whether it be job workforce, or whether it be tech school, or 4-year university. We want everybody to have an opportunity.
There is so much that you guys are doing that has just come along in recent years to where that's become such a focal point.
Yeah.
And I think I'm right on this. There have been some businesses around Hartwell that have given scholarships to kids to come, not to go overseas, but there's some local businesses right here. I think Fabritex and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
That actually have given money, scholarship money, for the people to go to the workforce.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. It's always the athletics, and I'm an athletic guy.
Sure.
But there's a lot of, not everybody is.
No.
And so I think that's just a huge thing. We could sit here, like I said, we could sit here and talk about athletics and all the stuff, because we spent so many years there. But I'm going to tell you something, way past that, people got to find a way to make a living for their families.
The analogy that I always use, listen, I played sports in high school, and when I graduated on June the 2nd of 1991, I didn't play another snap. Yeah. I didn't play another inning of baseball. Yeah. And I always talk to kids, and Steve and I have talked about it when he's growing up, kind of coming through the ranks too, is the ball is going to be flat one day.
Yes, sir, it is.
And when you're 47, you don't play sports anymore. Mm-hmm. Most people don't play at 19. You'll have 1% that'll go on and play at the next level. Right. And then unless you're elite, you're done at 22 or 23. So what's your plan? Yeah. What do you plan on doing after sports is over? Wow. Or and not everybody plays team sports, and that's okay. Yeah. But getting connected is another big piece of what we preach just in school in general.
That's right.
It's just being connected with some kind of career technical student organization, or or just be involved in something, a club, team sports, the band. It's very important to stay connected. And what are you going to do? What are you going to do when you grow up? You need to have a plan. I really didn't know at 20 that I would be called into education. Mm-hmm. Had no clue. So if you would have told me as a 16-year-old sophomore, I would have probably thought you were crazy. Mm. But we do try to talk to students about, have a plan. Don't mean you can't change it.
That's right.
But what is your plan after you graduate?
Well, I heard a statement, and I've shared this with ball players for years, and I heard it from Jay Strack, which is in Orlando, Florida. And he asked this question to every Student Leadership University student that comes through, that we went through. And so I found myself as the pastor taking students, but I was really the student. I was learning right along with them. Sure. And he asked this question. He said, if you could do anything you wanted to do, money was no issue, and you could not fail, what would you do? And I think that, he said, and the answer to that in lies your dream. What do you think you put on this planet to do? And sometimes kids don't know that, but one of the ways that they find that out is through guys like you. and programs like you're putting together. You said, well, what can an elementary school guy do? And he'll talk in just a minute, but you've given them a platform. That's the thing. You've given them the runway for them to take off where they never had that. When I was in school, Lord, I flunked out of school. I literally had to go to summer school to graduate.
I'm with you.
I mean, I did. I had a 1.1. Everybody knows that if you've ever heard me speak about my story. But, and everybody laughs about that. That's the truth.
Yeah.
First semester, 11th grade year, 1.1. Second semester, 1.6. Ended with a 1.3.
I know.
And I was glad to I went to summer school so I could graduate.
Yeah.
There was never anything like this before. And I think that you guys are touching some things that have never been touched before. Steve, you worked in elementary schools as a teacher. Mm-hmm. Now you're the vice principal. And I'm going to read a verse of scripture after you get through about negative influences in our life, because we all have them. But why do you think that it's important to get a jump start on these kids when they're in elementary school before they ever get to Brooks?
Because it's the relationship piece. Teaching them the appropriateness of a relationship is important. And it's hard in elementary school for kids to balance who's that positive person in my life, who's that negative, and then trying to teach them that it's not that you're better than them, but sometimes it becomes a separation piece where there's just some people, you hear teachers all the time, you sit on that side of the classroom and you sit on this one. And it's just that easy, or that first step of teaching them, you've got to have some separation, some boundaries, and what creates you from being your best. So when you look at elementary school, it's amazing. One, the kids see the love in every single body. They hug, they high five, they swap hats, they swap Gatorade bottles, they swap their lunch. And they don't see, and it's a great thing. They don't often see the negative in other people. But then there are some that are a little more mature when it comes to mistreating others and things of that nature. So at an early age now, I think more so than when we were young, there's some type of mistreatment that the kids who are less fortunate, they're identifying now that they are a little less fortunate. So having to balance, where do I fit in this world? And I think Coach has done a great job of opening up the College and Career Academy for elementary kids. That kid who in his mind thinks there's nothing for me in college, he sees that welding helmet when he goes and tours at College and Career Academy, and he knows, if nothing else, that welding hat, I'm good, I can be good at that. My daddy's a welder and I can go to school for this. Or they see the video cameras, they see the auto mechanics, they see drafting or whatever the 14 things they offer. They get a chance, they get that exposure even in elementary school to tour it, most of the time 4th and 5th grade. So we do things like club days across the county now in elementary schools, where they get a chance to sign up for different clubs to get that exposure. To not box them in, but to give them that exposure on what they may be good at. So going back to the question about good influences, I tell them all the time, there's nothing you can do about the negative influences in your life, because they're going to come. You can't keep them out. But how you react to that and how you respond to those situations, that's what defines your character. That's a 4th and 5th grade talk that we have daily. And I tell parents, moving your child out of this room solves the problem right now. Well, let's teach Johnny, let's teach Sue, whoever it is, how can we handle this?
Sure.
How can we because there's going to be naysayers in every aspect of our life.
What's the old saying that 10% of your life is what happens to you, 90% is how you deal with it?
No doubt.
That's exactly what you're talking about, and it's so true.
In the book of Numbers, the Old Testament, it's the story of where Moses is leading the children of Israel, and they get to the place to where they're about to cross the Jordan River to go to the Promised Land, and God tells them, He said, this place is plentiful, it's flowing with milk and honey. I mean, It's the Promised Land. And for a long time, I always wondered, why did He send spies over there if God said you could have it? Well, there's still a part that we play, even in God's promises. We still have to do our part and try and check it out and do our homework kind of thing. Well, the 12 spies go, they come back, and all the spies saw the exact same thing, but the way they shared what they saw. So you're talking about those negative influences are going to come. But how they all saw the same thing, but when they came back, 10 of the spies said they're giants in the land. Oh, wow. But Joshua and Caleb had the positive, and I've always gone back to this one word. It's in Numbers chapter 13. and verse 28, and it's just one word, and it's the conjunction nevertheless. They said the land is truly flowing with milk and honey. It is truly plentiful. It is exactly what you said it was. But the first word in that verse right there, it says, nevertheless, there are giants in the land. That one word, one negative word, cost 2 million Jews the promised land. In fact, Jesus said you're all going all the way back, and I love this thought. He said you're going all the way back to the wilderness. You're going to be there 40 years. And he says, and those that are of age, not the children, but those that are of age, your carcass will die in the wilderness and you'll never see the promised land. But studying through this about a year or so ago, I was reminded of when he took them from the Jordan River back to the wilderness. He took them by way of the Red Sea. And as they're walking past the Red Sea, you can imagine, guys, if we'd only believed God, because remember what he did here. Right. That was the last miracle he'd done in their life. And they're probably walking past the Red Sea thinking, wow. We saw him do it right. We saw him split that sea right there. Yeah. And so what I want to ask both of you guys, both of you guys were, you're we'll keep going back to sports guys, but you know sports stats. You know who's playing what. And when you get around guys like you, your coaches, and you're talking about who's doing what, who's getting drafted and all this, they're running up this package and that package and the nickel and the dime and the 25-cent pack, whatever you're running. I don't know anything about all that. But I got to ask you this question. When we're looking at negative influence in kids' lives, tell me why. I know that when I ask you, why did you get involved in education, you say, it's because of people in my life. But what is it to you? And I'll just point it like this, to you, when you see a kid that's about to head out of your control, or your influence, I guess you would say, and they have nothing. Maybe it was home life, or whatever. Or it's you, kid comes to elementary school, and there's some trouble at the house. And you're thinking, I can make a difference in that kid's life. What does that do to you to where while you're in education, where is that the thing that keeps you up late at night and wakes you up early in the morning?
You definitely think about it. I mean, to be honest with you, I was never a great teacher, but I became a better teacher when I started making in-home visits to see what our students were growing up in. Wow. I mean, honestly, because I was fortunate enough to grow up in a home where I had a loving mother and a father. My dad worked a lot of, he was a truck driver and he worked a lot of hours, but he was always there. I always went and cut wood with him on Saturday morning. He took me fishing. All right, my mama taught me how to cook. All right, but kids these days, and people talk about, well, kids have changed so much these days. No, they have not.
That's right.
The kids have not changed.
That's exactly
They come into this world knowing nothing. They want to live in a nurturing environment.
Yeah.
But what's changed is how they're being parented and how they're growing up. And this is not in the home. We talk about
this is 66 books of promises right here.
Absolutely.
From the Word of God.
That's the problem that I feel like. And it's if you get out and just go in the homes and talk to families, and then you talk to students, whether it be a ball player or whether it be just a student in your classroom every day, you start to see that, the homework assignment that our teachers are complaining about our kids not doing, if they'll just get up and leave the house and go to these homes, it'll at least resonate with them and they'll understand. It don't excuse it. I've got 3 teenagers and I expect them to get their work done, right? That's just my expectation for them, right? But a lot of kids are left with questions. They don't know what to expect.
That's good.
It does keep you up at night sometimes, right?
No doubt about it, Steve.
It does.
I don't know why, but I thought about a pregame speech, and I used to tell the boys, you may get knocked down, but you get back up and you try it again. When you raised that question, kids' faces popped in my brain.
I thought about several.
And you were talking, and I had to fight back some tears because I remember telling them, you're gonna get knocked down, son, but you got to fight. And it's unfair that I'm having that conversation with elementary kids who shouldn't have to fight the fight that they're having to fight.
Wow.
But having that opportunity to minister to them, to coach them through life, has been rewarding to me. You know, like coaches, and I was very fortunate. Left my mom and daddy's house today after church, and she cooked a full meal, and we sat around the pool deck, and I realized that out of my 647 kids at North Hart, there's a large percentage of them that will never experience that.
What you and I did today after our church with our families,
That's exactly right.
don't happen much.
That's right.
And so
right.
we're fortunate. Our kids don't have, not our kids,
That's right.
but our kids that are in the school system, most of them don't have that.
You know, I told Devane this, and I know, you know, we were talking about how him sitting in that chair there last week at the pastor's porch, and he's such a presence. I mean, good night.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the kind of guy you could listen to all day long. I mean,
could.
and so he's got such an influence in the community of Hart County. But I look at guys like him, and we talked about how, as a coach, so I want to pull just a little coach part out right now, because as a coach, and I experienced a lot of that through 12th band and through coaching and stuff. There's a lot of kids that go home to an empty home. Now, that doesn't mean there's not any adults in the home. It just means there's not any adult influence, the right kind of influence in the home. And you know this, but sometimes it helps to be reminded. You become that father figure in a kid's life, whether it's elementary, whether it's through 12th band, or whether it's through the College and Career Academy. And there's a balancing act, because you got kids of your own, and I understand all that's tough. You know, a lot of coaches struggle with that. But I know you do this too. But I see ball players. I've been at Hart County since 2001, and I see ball players all over Hartland. And I mean, they'll holler. They know me as preacher or whatever. You know. Now I don't remember all their names. I mean, there's been so many throughout the years. But you think that the influence that you don't know if you have much influence or not. You do.
Yeah.
They are listening, and they are watching. And whether, I even asked Coach Devane, he didn't know how to answer this question at first. I said, what do you think the similarities are of coaching and pastoring? He's like, wait a minute, I ain't no pastor now. But I'll ask you guys that same question. You guys are both involved in your church and ministry. And as you speak, just give me just a 30-second of how you came to know the Lord. But what do you think the similarities are in your professional career as an educator and a coaching career? How does that relate to being a minister in kids' lives?
Well, I've come to know the Lord in May of 1985. I was 12 years old after a revival sermon at Bible Baptist Church. So I come to know the Lord at 12, but I'll tell you, I got probably a wake up call on September the 22nd, 2002, when I probably should have lost my life.
Wow, I remember that.
And I lived my life differently.
Remember that?
Yeah, I remember. I lived my life differently. But that was a wake up call for me. But I was saved at the age of 12. But how that relates to my job now, I taught the American Revolution, taught fourth grade social studies for many years, and I never once shied away from talking about the principles, the biblical principles that our country was founded on. I never shied away from that, because I always felt like, you know what, I hear what everybody says about separation of church, religion, and school. No, I don't shy away from it.
Good.
I don't shy away from praying with kids.
That's right.
I don't shy away from it. Period. It talks about Peter and denying Jesus and all. If I laid my head down at night and had a chance to witness to a kid and didn't do it, that's on me.
That's
So good.
Anyway, you were laughing when I said that.
Well, there's so many similarities, I think, already between us. I didn't know you were 12, but it was a Thursday night. I was 12 years old after a revival. And I had been in church all my life, but when I became saved, it was a Thursday night at revival at Flat Rock. And, I sang all my life, but there was a little different in my singing after that. And then the older I've gotten, and some of the things I've went through, my relationship with Christ has gotten stronger.
Sure.
But I think relationship is what I've learned. That's how my job. The whole this whole thing that I have with Jesus right now is not about my religion, and it's not about my traditions, but it's about my relationship with Him. So if the God of the universe, if the God that created me built this whole thing called Christianity about a relationship, then what I've got to take to my job every day is a relationship mentality.
Good.
And and you said it earlier, you know, a portion of our job is about relationships. How is it that we can minister to folks inside of a school building? Is because we initiate that relationship.
Sure.
Home visits are not often territorial or hostile because of the relationship
that you had previous to
that trip.
No doubt.
And I know, you know, the first few discipline phone calls I made at North Hart were a lot harder than the last few I've made, because I've had an opportunity to hopefully build some relationships that, not just with the kids, but with their families, to know that, you know, my job is not about the paycheck I get once a month. It's not about the accolades that I may or may not get, but it's about making sure that I build that relationship with that kid and that family so they can have the best of whatever they want.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. You know, I was when a ball player will call me and say, "Listen, I want to get married. Would you marry me?" I'm thinking, you know, and he goes to another church, but it's, you know, you don't realize, sometimes you don't realize the influence
Because you had a relationship with
him. Because I heard this, and you probably heard it too, but rules without relationship equals rebellion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think relationship is the huge thing. Honestly, I'll be honest with you, I could talk to these guys all night long. I really love you guys, and I know you love me, and we love the same things. But the thing that's the common denominator between them all, it's not athletics, and it's the relationship with the Lord Jesus.
That's right.
And you know, there's enough negative influences. The children of Israel, because they believed the report of the 10 negative spies, all because they all saw the same thing, but they saw the circumstances of those same things. And Joshua and Caleb said, "Yeah, but God said we could have them." And sometimes we forego the promises of God because we look at the circumstances around those promises. And that's what happened to the children of Israel, and they lost the opportunity. Then you go all the way back to where Joshua comes in, and God said, "As I was with Moses, so I will be with you." And I look at that many times with kids' parents. Mom and dad didn't really make great choices, but there's a promise to that child, and say, if you won't be a victim of your upbringing, but you'll say, you know what, God can do something with me. And you guys continue to reinforce that in kids' life and students' lives are about to graduate. I think that's so powerful. I really think that kids that are hanging out with you and they're going through these programs that you have, I just think that's, I don't say it's the only hope, because I know there's a lot of hope,
Right.
but I think it is major when what you're saying is reinforcing what mom and dad could only dream of getting to do in their kids' life.
Well, you know, we have to give our kids a reason to be at school.
That's great.
I've heard our superintendent talk about that since he came on, but it's so true. We have to give our kids a reason to be at school, no matter what it looks like. If it's repairing an engine, if it's video and going and video and ball games, whatever it is, we got to give our kids a reason to come to school.
Great thought. That'd work in the church too. Or give people a reason.
Come
to
on.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
How you treat them is a good thing.
Yes.
We know it's ultimately about the Lord, but
Amen.
people like to be encouraged a little bit too. You know,
Just a little bit. Yep.
And from our roles, that encouragement starts with the teachers that we work with. You know, I have learned that the last 2 years in administration. If you want your teachers to build a relationship with kids, you better build a relationship with your teachers.
Amen. You lead the way.
And
100%.
that trickles down into the classrooms. And don't expect the teacher to do something with 24 kids in their room that you're not willing to do with that one teacher.
Good.
Same way in the church.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Starts with
They
you.
lead by example. No doubt about
Absolutely.
it.
No doubt.
You know, I'll finish with this, and if you guys want to say anything to finish us out, we'll pray. But I remember many times going through and doing devotions when Steve was a player, and I wouldn't even get in there good. And they start singing some old gospel song, and before long we'd have the whole place singing gospel music. You know.
Yes, sir.
And you know, and Brooks is always the most encouraging guy. If I've done a devotion, I felt like I felt flat on my face, and he'd come up to me, "Man, it was awesome. It was just awesome." And I'm just thinking, you know, kids, and both of these guys are like this, but kids will run through a wall when they know that there's that much love for them that you guys show. It's on the ball field. It's in the classroom. It's on the sidelines. People are, those kids feed off of that stuff. And I know you know that, but just be reminded, everything that you're doing, there's a lot of days you sit back and think, I don't think I'm making a difference in nobody.
Oh, yeah.
And we all feel that way in leadership. I know that.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you from the outside looking in, as a parent, there's been some days when Steve and I coached together, we were scared to death because of things that happened to a kid who was hurt. And, you know, I'll never forget those days.
Yep.
There's days when I've been around Brooks and he's done a pregame speech, and I mean, it was like, I wanted to go play, and I knew I wasn't going to play, but I'm thinking, God. And these kids they would literally run through a wall for them. I'm just going to say this. If you got kids and you're trying to figure out where to send them to school, not because my kids went to Hart County, but this is the kind of stuff that's coming out of Hart County. If you like this video, the guys that are videoing this stuff are the ones that are teaching your kids at Hart County how to do this.
That's right.
The quality of things we have at Hart County is blowing. I didn't even mean for this to be about Hart County, but I'm telling you, it's amazing the talent and the resources that we have. So, and I got to be careful because I pastor church got all the counties in it. So
Amen.
They know
we
they'll
all
be
God's
right.
children.
I know. Sorry. Yeah. Well,
we appreciate the opportunity to come. And
absolutely.
I appreciate you guys being here. Their families are in the house. We've been eating together and hanging out a little bit.
It's been a good time.
Yeah. I just like I say, I'll say it again. I love these guys. And you guys want to say anything, or one of you just pray us out of here, and we'll close it down. But I just want to thank you for spending time on the porch with me tonight.
I do want to say this before Reverend Burton
Reverend
closes us up with prayer. I've known Chris for almost 20 years. I met him. Never forget the first time I met him. And our not only our football program and our athletic programs, but our school system has been blessed to have you serving and volunteering over the last 2 decades. It's been a blessing, and I say that with all sincerity.
Yeah,
it's been a blessing to have 12th man.
People. I really do.
Absolutely, and I can say that. And I've had two sons that have come up through your program with the 12th man. You know, just seeing Preston start out as a ball boy, and then John Valrath was playing when he was playing, and then he wears the number. And it all started with the 12th man ministry, and now he's graduating and moving on, and now my other one's got one more year with you before he comes up. It's just been a blessing for my kids to be in it. You know, when I got out and got into administration, I had a chance to come on with you and work a little bit. And
I remember that.
But anyway, we're blessed to have you.
Absolutely.
No doubt about it. And certainly it's more than just Hart County, because your church, as you say, y'all are right here in the center of 4 different counties together right there. And I know that everybody from all the other counties around us would say the same thing. But we're blessed to have you.
Yeah, it's just been a good fit all the way around.
Yes.
And relationships that we've made together has been huge.
Absolutely. No doubt.
You asked a question a minute ago about naysayers and negativity in your life, and I'll end it with this: if you're wondering how to combat that, the biggest thing is surrounding yourself by people who are in your corner. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting at a table with 2 people that you don't always tell me what I want to hear, but you're in my corner to make me a better man, make me a better husband, make me a better teacher, administrator. So naysayers are still there, but having people like y'all in my corner have been tremendous. I'm forever. I told my wife on the way over, I'm in debt to both of you for what you poured into me. I wrote a letter to a senior the other day, and I put in that letter that I appreciated him sharing his daddy with me, because I realized that the moments that y'all were with me, I realize now as a daddy, you forfeited time with your own kids. So I'm forever in debt for what y'all done for me. So put people like these 2 in your corner. Coach Gaines is behind the camera. He's been in my corner for a while. He coached me as well. So that's how you overcome that.
Yeah. Well, I'm once again, pray us out of here, Reverend Burton.
Not officially ordained.
Pray for us, man.
I will. God, we love you and we praise you, and we thank you for the opportunity just to sit on the porch. And we realize that even in every aspect of the conversations we had, God, you were glorified. Mm-hmm. We realize that it was because of your grace and your mercy that we're able to sit here today. Our families are safe and doing fine in the midst of a trying time for our country. God, I pray that you continue to bless us and keep us. I pray you pour into the ministry that Chris has here. I pray for the people behind the cameras, those who set up, those who do the editing, and for Chris who does this week in and week out. And God, I do pray for our country right now. I pray for your healing across our land. God, I pray that at the end of this storm, you will be glorified and you should be lifted up for all that we've overcame. Give us traveling grace, and we just pray once again for all who are sick and shut in. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thanks again for spending the night with us on the pastor's porch. Look forward to seeing you next week.